Welcome to Bell Midnight. In this episode, we'll be talking about, is Bigfoot real? And if he is, why is he such a degenerate? I'm Joseph Michaels, joined by John Mack. What do you got for us?
We're going to start from the beginning here and, address the elephant in the room, that being, the whole Bigfoot thing. Obviously, everybody's seen in popular culture recently the Bigfoot shows, the tracking Bigfoot, the trail cams that never seem to capture Bigfoot, but always capture a lot of noise going on around.
Right.
He seems to be especially adept at never being seen. But we're going to ask the question. We're going to go today on the assumption, say this Bigfoot thing is real. What's his nature? Was he made out of? What kind of creature is he? Is he a naturally occurring creature? Is he some kind of, as some people have proposed, interdimensional traveler?
He's an alien.
He's an alien, or is he all the above? Who knows? So let's start at the beginning. So the U.S. Forest Service and the Wyoming Game and Fish Department actually conducted a study in the Shoshone National Forest. It's in northwest Wyoming.
All right.
Now, the forest is the first federally protected national forest in the United States. It covers a significant portion of land. It's 2,500,000 acres across the state of Wyoming.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty big. So this gentleman, he's a researcher, and his job was to go out there and he was going to observe the natural wildlife, observe the state of the forest, basically get a feel for how things are going out there. With such a large land mass of forest, you basically have to send somebody out there for a few nights in a tent to see what's going on. So,
of course.
This guy sets up his tent, he does his thing, he takes his readings, he, makes his notes, and he's getting ready to go down to bed. So he gets in his tent and he's getting ready for the night. He hears a little bit of a shuffling in the woods. And he's like, okay, is this other people coming? So he sees a silhouette on his tent. And the silhouette looks like a fucking full-on Harry and the Hendersons, like bullshit Bigfoot,
the typical image one would associate with Bigfoot.
Yeah, exactly. The big lumbering animal. So it comes over to his tent and puts a gigantic hand against the tent. Now, this is what the man says. And it's like pushing in the tent and like trying to figure out what's going on with the tent. Like it's mesmerized and mystified about the material the tent is made of. How do I get into this thing? What is it? Is it food?
I think I've heard this one. It starts pawing at the tent like it doesn't know what it is.
Yeah. And as it's pawing at the tent, he swats where its hand is pressed up against the tent with the back of his hand. Yeah, and so the thing freaks out and takes the fuck off. So after he hits it and it takes off, he starts looking into this because it's kind of alarming. Either you've got a full-on, stereotypical tropey Bigfoot running around there, pawing at tents and whatever else he might be pawing at, and we'll get into that later. And he wants to find out what's going on. So he starts looking at some of the documentation about people who have filed complaints and filed sightings of various things and activity. And he's finding a common theme of these primate-like giant ape sightings. So there's one fella who's got, who's the most recent. He says he's got a sighting where something was shuffling around his cabin, making a terrible noise. He came out with his gun and he fired a shot in the air, and the thing took off like a bat out of hell. And he goes to see what happened with this sighting of the buffoon, creature. And he goes to the cabin. Apparently, when he's talking to this man, the man reveals that when he had seen this thing, he didn't just shoot at it, as the report said, but he shot it itself, and it actually fell down.
Really?
Yes. And then it got up and ran off. The man, his name is only given as John. I don't believe the last name is ever given. This is the researcher we're talking about. He collected some hairs found at the scene. This thing apparently, upon scraping all around the cabin, had lost some of its hairs. Now, here's where things actually do legitimately get interesting. He contacts a gentleman he's been familiar with for previous work. His name is Walter Berkeley. Now,
that name actually sounds familiar.
Well, he should sound familiar. He's actually a very famous man. He is apparently the leading forensic pathologist with a reputation for identifying hair samples. Man, animal, doesn't matter. He gets it all. He gets FBI, he gets the private stuff. He's really, really good. This Berkeley fellow, Walter, he identifies the hair as being primate, but he can't find any matches. And he actually calls up John and he says, look, you got me. This is the first time it's ever happened in my career. I have no idea what this is. This is primate in nature. but I can't identify this. Now, this, with the exception of the part of the forensic pathologist, this is a typical story. Shows in the news, Bigfoot found, here's some footprints, no way to prove any of that stuff. I just thought that in this case, the forensic pathologist, the really, really amazing reputation, is a bit of an outlier. I liked it. It was cool. This gets me thinking. I'm looking into this stuff. I'm thinking,
well, going back to the hair samples, I mean, even if he got the hair samples that were primate in nature and he couldn't identify him, even if it was a hoax, he would go, oh, this is a chimpanzee or this is orangutan. I can identify it.
Exactly it.
And clearly something's up, but he couldn't identify it.
Which is curious. It's not impossible that, and the thought had occurred to me that it's not impossible that it was just something that he was unable, because labs are unable to identify things all the time and to do basic lab work forever. When you're analyzing a DNA sample or you're analyzing hair or something like that, like the process takes days. If anything goes wrong during the process or, and most of the time your results are only mostly conclusive. It's just the nature of the beast. I mean, any lab worker will tell you shit takes forever. And the answers you get back are just, probably answers. I got to thinking upon reading this, I'm like, okay, so what's going on with this Bigfoot? I had heard, as you have previous stories, tons of them about this thing. And what I started coming across more was I couldn't tell if it was a case of Bigfoot being an absolute degenerate who engages in debauchery, or if it was a result of middle-aged woman fan fiction.
Oh, the fan fiction.
And we're going to get into that too. So how many stories exist of the Bigfoot? Well, I'm going to go through a few of them. So there was a gentleman, a Daryl Whitaker from Glenwood Springs, Colorado. He had claimed that a Sasquatch had attacked him and attempted to rape him while he was walking through the woods. So he's at the bar, he's tying a few on, and he's walking home. So already we've got a substance in the mix. So whatever.
Right.
Probably amongst other things. But he's a 57-year-old man. He's walking to his hunting cabin on a Sunday, and he wanted to see if it had suffered any damage during the winter. When all of a sudden, and these are his words, a large gorilla-like creature dropped from a tree in front of him and punched him in the face. So Bigfoot's not like, hey, how are you? He's not like, hey, you got some food. He's just like, he drops from the tree and starts throwing down.
I thought he was a gentle creature that would share fish.
I know. I thought that Bigfoot could commune with crystals for the miracle healing powers, or,
Guess not. I guess he's violent.
Yeah, he seems like he's a violent fucking animal. Anyway, so when he was trying to recover from the attack, he's like trying to get up and shake it off. He said it was like getting hit by a truck. He says the large humanoid creature began to tear his clothes while letting out some terrifying howls. No doubt likely picked up by a trail cam by someone else and posted on YouTube.
Victory howls.
Yeah. So he said, in his exact words, when I regained consciousness, he had already torn my pants and was tearing through my underwear. I stabbed him in the shoulder with my hunting knife, and that made him run away.
Holy fuck.
Yeah. So he said and to his credit, actually, he did immediately report to the Glenwood Springs Police Department and the Colorado Parks and Wildlife Agency. I could not find information. The only direction I was going on with this man is either one, he's incredibly high and hallucinating, or two, he was late getting home and needed an excuse for his wife, but I couldn't find out if he was married.
That's a hell of an excuse.
Yeah, I know, right? It's like going straight past the, I twisted my ankle in the woods to straight to like I'm raped by a Bigfoot. But I mean, hey,
right.
whatever works.
Sorry, honey, I'm late. I got lost out in the world, the whole world out there, honey.
Yeah, I went in the wrong direction. I ended up in China. So I'm like, okay, this is creepy, but not uncommon. I've heard it before. I mean, if Bigfoot really is an alien, he probably has an anal fixation. So I'm reading on, and that's when I come across the gem. There's a woman named Nancy Hoggart. Okay, Nancy Hoggart is my diamond.
Is this the woman who was leaving out the presents?
No, this is something else. Nancy Hoggart is not only is she a Bigfoot tracker, but she has a main job, and we'll get to that, her primary source of income, in a moment.
All right.
She's infamous because she claims to have been in a sexual relationship with Bigfoot since 2008. Yeah, obviously high standards. and they are trying to start a family. She claims that Bigfoot lives in Mason County, Washington, and that she first encountered the beast while tending to her crops. See, that's her primary job. She's a marijuana grower. Yeah.
She grows the weed. All right.
She grows the weed. Okay, so Nancy Hoggart, this is great. After she let them know, where he lived and they were trying to start a family, she gave an account of the scene that unfolded, and she said that Bigfoot was standing there eating all the buds off the plants. He's eating these marijuana buds.
At least he knows what the good part of the plant is.
Yeah, exactly.
He seems familiar with marijuana.
Yeah. Doesn't it just paint a picture of Sasquatch as some filthy, uncontrollable stoner who just kills dogs, wrecks property, and takes women's underwear to sniff? Just like some lowest of the low degenerate.
Maybe he's not even a Bigfoot. Maybe it's just a Sasquatch. Maybe it's just a homeless man living in a cave.
Maybe. He's of large stature and like really, really grown out hair that he hasn't cut in a while, so he looks like he's a big ape. Or he could be an Italian guy.
I heard recently that there's a rumor or an old story going around that in the Appalachian Mountains, like along the Appalachian Mountain Trail, that there are stories of wildmen or wildman tribes living up there in the woods.
I've heard that as well. There was actually, I think there was one confirmed case of that. That was, I think, the turn of the 20th century. And they were naturally, as you'd expect, killed off. But okay. She says Bigfoot was standing there eating all the buds off. And she said at first she wanted to run because he's very scary. But I thought he might eat all of my marijuana plants. And that's how I used to make a living. These are her words, not mine.
Well, now
I pointed my shotgun at him, and he put his hands up, scared. So he assumed the position. I'm sure he's pretty good at running away from police dogs, too. She says, that's when I looked down and noticed he had a huge erection between his legs. She says, in her own words, I hadn't gotten any in a while. And well, from there, it somehow turned into an adult movie.
Wow.
I don't know if he started it or I did. He did me from behind, which felt great. Naturally, she said their relationship blossomed from just sex partners to a deep love. As it would, when you can barely understand each other and come from different species. I'm gonna put a ring on that finger. I'm sure her pet ferret really loves her too, and she can tell. So she goes on to say, he's so sweet and caring. He brings me flowers and mushroom. Mushroom. He holds me while we stargaze. The only downside is that he don't speak English. Again, I'm quoting. I have taught him how to say my name, but it's kind of garbled. And he mispronounces it Nuncy. Because she's Nancy.
Jesus.
Hoggart said they're trying for a baby. Genetics would like to have a talk. Wow. With no luck thus far, but she is confident it will happen, even though she is 52.
Yeah.
Nothing but tumbleweeds up in that town. Once I'm pregnant, Bigfoot, or John as I call him, and I are going to settle down and live a quiet, domesticated life in my house. He loves living in the forest, but I'm sick of the long-distance relationship. I have to commute for 3 hours to be with my man. It's getting old, and gas is expensive. So at least she's got, this part grounded in reality, considering her finance. You just can't be dumping gas in your car all the time. Just go, get some nookie from.
She's got to meet up with her sugar daddy.
Mm-hmm. Well, he has a huge erection. How could she resist it?
Hey, his name is John. All right, don't call him it or an animal.
Long John Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The question the interviewer had at that point was, "Are you going to, reveal this to the public at large? Are you going to show him off?" And she said, "Nah." Her exact reply was, "Nah." She said government scientists would just take and dissect him, try to turn him into a soldier to fight ISIS or something. You know how the government is.
Wow, that is insane.
And I just had this thought in my head. Can you imagine, Marine Corps Bigfoot, guys getting mowed down, and somebody goes, "Medic!" And here comes Bigfoot with his, that a vest with a cross on it, and he's just like picking up guys and tossing them back to camp. And he's just like, gonna have a movie made about him with dramatic music by Danny Elfman. It's gonna be phenomenal.
It'll be like the story of the artillery bear.
Oh,
except
yeah.
it's Bigfoot and he's a medic.
She did say she will sell pictures and samples of Bigfoot's fur through a website she plans to set up. And why would she do all of this?
Oh, she has a website. Is it real?
No, it's not set up yet. I would imagine
yet.
she was going to set it up. She probably just smoked some of her product and forgot about it.
Maybe Bigfoot had to sit down with her and told her it's not a good idea.
Oh, he can't talk. You know what they say? Nancy, no picture. At the end of her interview, she did note that now that marijuana is legal in Washington State, she doesn't have an income, so she's going to capitalize on her boyfriend's fame. They really struck gold on that one, Bigfoot. You're an idiot.
I think Bigfoot could have done better.
I think he could have done better. I honestly do. I'm like, okay, have I reached the height of degeneracy? Is there any more anybody can claim to drag us down to this disgusting level of this moron of an animal? And you know what? That's when I came across, let's see, what's her name here? She's got a friend, a Yale neurologist, Dr. Stephen Novella, said in Neurological blog, it equals human DNA plus some anomalies. Specifically when referencing some very base research one Dr. Ketchum has released. She is a veterinary biologist, and she's located in Texas. And she has made the claim that Bigfoot is real, and he is the result of human women mating with an unknown hominin. And she claims to have a large cache of research data in regards to this, and she can prove it. Now, mind you, this was back in 2012, and we've heard nothing else from her.
Maybe it was the government stopping her.
It might have been the government. You know how they are.
You know how they are. They wanted to fight ISIS.
You know how they are. Definitely doesn't look like the kind of woman who's lonely and writes crazy fan fiction.
Right.
It's definitely not the kind of person who would do that. The team, what she says is a team of scientists, although no one can be verified except for her on this team, verified that the 5-year-long DNA study, and it's currently under peer review, although which peers are reviewing it cannot be confirmed. They said it confirms the existence of a novel hominin hybrid species commonly called Bigfoot or Sasquatch living in North America. I guess they've forgotten that Sasquatch originally is like a Tibet thing. But
hey, don't call him Squatch. That's derogatory.
You know what? That's funny too, because we'll get to that because Bigfoot may have something to worry about.
Offensive.
The old Squatches may have themselves a bloodbath soon, but we'll get to that. So she said her team has sequenced 3 complete Sasquatch nuclear genomes and determined the species is a human hybrid. Now, I don't know if she perhaps has some great ape DNA, which is a 98% similarity between humans. I don't know if she's accounting for that. And quite frankly, no one knows.
Yeah, could you make that error, though?
I would think that would be an error that a professional would make. And I'm sure she hasn't made it, being as that she is a consummate. So she came up with that. And so that got me thinking, okay, we got Nancy here. We got Ketchum. She specializes in forensics and genetics. She is a published participant in the work into the equine genome, which is actually interesting because remember the guy who started on the Soviet monkey soldier thing was also into horses.
Right.
So she says they have the research data that's being peer reviewed. However, a lot of people have questions about it. There is no peer review on, published in any kind of scientific journal. So any of the pure science that's involved with it is completely unknown.
Wow.
Degenerate Bigfoot may have been the product of an earlier degenerate ape that had stolen women and had surprise relations with. This is not a new story. 1961, a young woman claimed to have been raped near Bemidji, Minnesota, by the Iceman, a Bigfoot-like creature, and at least one tabloid screamed, "I was R-word by the abominable snowman." The Canadian logger waited until 1957 before claiming he'd be carried off to the home of a Sasquatch in 1924, though he was still in his sleeping bag at the time, so it was a recreation of that scene from Friday the 13th where he grabs that girl in the sleeping bag. Of course, there was no tree involved this time, but he just kind of carried him back to camp.
Mhm.
His report suggests as soon as he adjusted to the life of being a captive of the Sasquatch, which was a family of 4, by the way. There was a male Bigfoot, there was a female Bigfoot, and 2 little baby Bigfoots.
What'd
He
they
said
do? Bring
about-
him home as a pet?
I guess, I don't know, maybe he was there to clean the latrine. He never really went into too much detail about his daily functions there. He said he escaped after a week. But I do find interesting about it, actually, in regards to all this stuff, is the response you get for this kind of. When you have this sort of thing like a Bigfoot or some kind of claim that you were kidnapped by a Bigfoot, you were kidnapped by aliens, all that stuff, the deafening screaming from the scientific community is
Yeah.
always, if there's anything I find more ridiculous than these, it's the absolute banshee wail of these professionals who, if truly were professional, wouldn't even give this stuff a time of day.
Oh, it's been debunked.
Yeah.
Debunked.
Everything's been debunked. The reaction to the investigation, they're called the Siamese and the Tibetans, had the same legends. They never sold Yeti ashtrays. They never had Bigfoot-related merchandise. It was just something that was accepted in their society. In the Himalayas, no neighborhood whispered campaigns over ostracizing investigators for antisocial speculation, broke up an investigator's marriage, or made threatened witnesses and made them fear for their jobs. These are all things that are endemic to the United States, to North America. I should be more specific or less specific, because Canada's involved in this as well. This has become a big problem with any of this. If there was ever a chance that something like this existed, some degenerate running around the woods, stealing women's underwear, killing people's dogs, and apparently having sex with marijuana farmers, there would be no way to know. Because at the moment that you would be able to prove that something's ridiculous, you could concretely show that something is false. The wailing from the scientific community, the absolute banshees scream from them, would drown out any other talk that could happen.
It's really strange. I mean, wouldn't they be better off just, all right, let's say it is a hoax or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't it be better to let them present all their doctored evidence and whatever else they're going to need for their hoax?
Let them dig their grave.
And exactly, let them dig their own grave and then clearly debunk them in front of everyone and put it to bed once and for all, rather than attacking them privately like that.
You make an example for everybody in which you say, look, if you're going to come at us with this ridiculous crap, your burden of evidence is so much more than all of these other people. Like, if you want to come at us and say you're having us, even though she's ridiculous, but if you want to come at us and say you're having a sexual relation with Bigfoot, you got a pretty high hurdle to get over.
That's right.
But instead, they're like, yeah, we're just going to try to break up your marriage with phone calls and getting people fired.
That's so weird.
It's on such a ridiculous subject. That's like saying I believe in I don't know. I believe that whales can fly, and my Lord and Savior is a flying whale. It's obviously preposterous. No one's going to take the time to scream at me about it because it's preposterous.
Right.
Why do they focus on this with such a hyper negativity? I always found that really, really curious. It's almost as if Bigfoot himself, like even the idea of this, and what many would consider absolutely ridiculous fucking concept, is an assault and an affront to their religion. And I use that word very specifically, their religion, the cult.
They have such adherence to a material view of the world.
Yeah, which is something I found pretty curious about this, because in all these cases, like, the amount of screeching and reeing from these people is, you could hear from the space station. Like, it's so that got me onto some other things. I kind of just started to abandon the Bigfoot. At this point, I was kind of veering away from the Bigfoot degeneracy because there's so much of it, and all the panty sniffing and all the fan fiction about women having sex with Bigfoot, and just how big his erection is. Anything from like a full foot to like a redwood tree.
He has a really impressive criminal history.
He does, actually. But so I got into the other things, and I'm sure you remember the stories about Bigfoot being an absolute buffoon. Do you remember the Skinwalker Ranch story? where some of the people who were on Skinwalker Ranch said they had saw a Bigfoot materialize inside an alien, like a spaceship or some kind of ship-like device. And the control panel on the device is sparking and there's a small fire inside, and he looks confused and he's pressing every button he can. and it just disappears. I hope that one ended up on some faraway dimension.
Yeah. The one I remember about Skinwalker Ranch is when the original, not the original owner, but the guy who bought it afterwards.
Yeah.
And
are you talking about what's his name? I know who you're talking.
Not the millionaire, not the billionaire.
Not the billionaire.
The guy who actually wanted to raise cattle there.
Oh yeah.
He said that he was out working one day and he saw a Bigfoot appear roughly 100 yards away or so. And he went in and got his like AK-47 rifle and just started shooting at it.
Well, I think was that Utah, I believe, is Skinwalker Ranch. I don't remember where it is, but out there you're going to find a lot of fucking AKs. Yeah. You can find a lot of big guns.
And he said it happened a couple of times. He said, and then it just ran off. Then I think like a week or so later, it reappeared, but closer. Yeah. And he opened fire on it yet again. He said he knew he was hitting it, but it wasn't doing anything to it, and it just ran off again.
Yeah. That reminds me of all the other stories from that ranch, because you have that case where when that first guy who bought it, before the billionaire bought it and his family moved in, there was a wolf on the property. Remember that story?
Right, the wolf.
There was a wolf there that was like almost as big as a horse. And the wolf is up on the fence. And it's kind of just like looking around, seeing what's going on. It was a completely unnatural size for a wolf. I've seen how big wolves are. I've seen even the pictures of the biggest possibility for a wolf. And this thing was like double that.
Yeah, people, some researchers say that it would have been like a dire wolf if it... Yeah, a huge dire wolf. Size.
Yeah, which is not exactly going to survive in the United States. Like, dire wolves are not going to go unnoticed in the US. And that's the other thing about this, too. In all of these cases, like, where there's supposed to be these Bigfoots living in the wild and having nests and little caves and stuff like that. Look, I'm sorry. That's not possible in the United States. It's just not possible. Someone's going to find you. Somebody's going to talk about it. And you're going to have people descend on you like locusts, and they're going to rip you apart. I don't care how strong you are. I don't care how big you are. And God forbid you catch the attention of some entity like the military or an agency, and they figure out there's something really strong and kind of creepy out there. They're just going to get rid of you before anybody knows about it.
Especially with the prevalence of people who like to go on hikes and outdoorsmen and stuff like that, and how common cell phone cameras are, trail cams. I mean, even hunters setting up a trail cam just to track big game, eventually you'd think one of them would catch a Bigfoot. And then you got the prevalence of drones and every other thing, and people just out there.
There's nowhere to hide.
Right.
There's nowhere to hide.
Like, there's a lot of places to hide, sure, but I mean, eventually you're going to cross tracks with something.
Well, yeah, eventually you fail the sneaking portion of the mission, and that everyone on the map is alerted. You know what I mean? Like, it's going to happen, especially if these things had children.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Especially, like, if there was a full breeding population.
Yeah, somebody's going to see it. I don't care how incredible you think they are.
But there is no breeding population because he's an interdimensional alien that can teleport.
Well, that's the other thing. Whenever this sightings happen, there's always a general strangeness that happens around it too. Like the Skinwalker Ranch thing, like that's like 5 different things happening at the same time.
Right.
Like if it's to be believed, if any of this was true, it's like you got like an alien factor, you got a Bigfoot factor, you have some kind of interdimensional travel, you've got a cloaking factor, you got all these things going on in the same place. If anything like this was ever possible, it would have to adhere, I think, more to the standards of the people who say that this is all just the same thing. Like, it doesn't matter if it's a stupid, whatever, like a flying saucer or a Bigfoot or a skinwalker, any of that shit. It's all the same thing. Just a trickster.
Yeah, and I've always been suspicious of the Bigfoot stuff. Like I've said before, if a hunter tells me he saw a Bigfoot track or he saw a Bigfoot, I'm gonna take his word for it. Maybe he saw something that he can't explain, right?
There's not a lot to be gained from saying that you saw it. Like, you're not going to get rich. It's just not going to happen.
And all they want to do is just kind of like tell the story and then kind of move on with their day. But when someone tells me, I commune with Bigfoots, I see Bigfoots all the time. By the way, sign up for my newsletter. It's only $11 a month. Make sure to check out the website. Make sure to buy the book. Make sure to buy my $50 tickets to my talks. Then I get a little suspicious. Maybe they didn't really see Bigfoot at all. Maybe they're just trying to make a couple bucks.
Maybe the marijuana business isn't doing so well anymore.
Exactly.
So we come down to the conclusion, who the hell knows what's going on? We know if this thing is real, it has a couple of key characteristics. Probably something that's just appears differently for different people. It's probably not a biological organism in the strict sense that it inhabits an area, it has a breeding ground, does all those things. It is extremely degenerate and an absolute nasty, stupid animal. Well, at least as far as it's thinking. Whenever you have a situation like that, you just have to get rid of it. Which brings me to the last part of the story today. There are several states that are now issuing official Bigfoot hunting license.
Really?
Things are gonna get real for Bigfoot.
How much for a Bigfoot pelt?
I don't know. How much could you get? I tell you, it's tempting. You remember that idea we had about the Squatch show?
Oh, the Squatch hunters?
Yeah, that very well may be becoming a reality.
Yeah, it might.
You imagine coming across the camp and going, oh, wow, I actually did find them. And just taking them all out and selling the skins.
Yeah, but I'm gentle.
Well, at least then there'll be a couple of clotheslines that still have the underwear attached to them, and there won't be any wood rape going on. Well, at least not by Bigfoots.
I heard there is a epidemic of Bigfoot fan fiction books on Amazon.
Dude, and that was the biggest problem I came with my research. Whenever I was doing any sort of web search, like web searches were pretty much just torpedoed right off the bat because that's all that comes up. It is some middle-aged woman's fan fiction about Bigwood ramming her morning, noon, and night. It's just, I have never seen, let me tell you something. If I had to put at the top of the degenerate list, I mean, when you get past the usual suspects, dudes have nothing on these middle-aged women. Man, when it comes to these books, I mean, unless you're talking about Chuck Tingle, like,
yeah,
and Chuck Tingle's
got the stuff going.
Chuck Tingle was it. You know, Chuck Tingle's covered this area and perfected and mastered it for these people ever clued in. Chuck Tingle, dude, he's already moving on to dinosaurs. He knows what's up.
Oh, he's already had the dinosaurs and gay cowboys in space, I think.
Yeah, now he's got like autonomous, like actual intelligent building that are, having gay relationships.
All right. So here's a Chuck Tingle book. So you heard about the recent thing with the ship being stuck in the Suez Canal?
Oh yeah.
Right.
The ship, yeah.
Here's a Chuck Tingle book about it. I freed this handsome cargo ship from the Suez Canal, and now he's stuck in my butt. Oh, these are fantastic.
Hit me with another one.
It just so happens he has a Bigfoot one. I went on a hunt for the Easter Bigfoot, and now he's eating my ass.
Chuck Tingle ahead of the curve. Oh, God.
One of his recent books here is pretty good. Not Pounded by Anything. 6 Platonic Tales of Non-Sexual Encounters.
Whoa. Is Chuck being abstinent now? That's unlike him.
Here, one more.
Right.
Chuck Tingle, Space Raptor Butt Invasion.
I wonder how many pages his book has.
I don't know.
It's got to be pretty thin. So he's got a new book every other day.
There's audio books too. You could listen to them at work.
I think I would be pretty uncomfortable. But yeah. So basically, when it comes to this particular brand of buffo degenerate Bigfoot, there are always stories of him dragging. Even the natives have stories of them dragging women off, eating people, doing things to them.
The classic like monster story level stuff.
Yeah. Essentially, yeah. I mean, you can go back at multiple points in history and get the monster story stuff. It's very interesting, at least from a folklore kind of perspective. Basically, it just leads me to conclude, I can't confirm Bigfoot's real or fake.
Well, you're going to have to get your license and go out and find one.
If I could shoot a Bigfoot, I would in a second, and I would sleep like a baby. But, God, can you imagine felling one of those? I'd have to take a picture next to the body. Maybe try to pry his eyes open, get his pupils focused. Go, hey, Bigfoot, look at the camera. You look nice and scary.
How would you get him back to the vehicle?
Oh, God, you'd have to have some kind of...
You have to have a big 4-wheeler.
Well, that was the thing, too. Like, in every case, they said this thing looks like anywhere from 5 to 800. So
5 to 800.
Yeah, I don't think a 4-wheeler's dragging that.
Mm.
I'm not sure what their capacity is.
I don't know. I'm not a 4-wheeler enthusiast.
Yeah, me either. I never really got into the scene. But yeah, my thanks, by the way, for the opportunity to do the show about Bigfoot. I feel dirtier. I need a shower. And I hate the thing more. I absolutely hate Bigfoot. I hate him.
So you didn't enjoy researching Bigfoot's hijinks?
No, I don't. He's a degenerate. He is a deviant. I think it would be in the best interest of humanity that if this thing were ever to be real, that we should hunt it down and exterminate it promptly.
Or he's an interdimensional alien.
Well, they can go just to... Guy shot it. He fell down. That's a start.
I've heard all kinds of crazy stuff about Bigfoot, that he works with aliens, that he's...
like he's the muscle.
Yeah, he's the, what is it, the scouting team.
Yeah. I've heard they have no respect.
But you know what's interesting is, you think Bigfoot has something to do with, well, I mean...
No, go on. The audience would enjoy you elaborate.
Well, I mean, you've heard of missing 411.
I don't like it for a lot of reasons. I think it's too easy. I mean, kind of too easy.
Bigfoot doesn't seem smart enough.
No, yeah, and there's that. And like, this dumb friggin' thing, like a lot of those missing 411s, you got shoes located 12 miles away from some child is at the top of a snowy peak. Like, everything I've seen of this thing is that it's dumb and it's not going to go through that kind of... The thing's looking for dirty underwear and like candy. Like, it's the equivalent of like, geez, even a bear doesn't stoop that low. We'll go for the candy, but it's not out for someone's underwear. Like, Bigfoot just seems like he's like a hairy person with an IQ of about 30. With the missing 411 stuff, it does truly get weird in some cases. I'm sure some can be explained by people taking a shaky step in the woods, pitching over a mountain. But people showing up in places where have been searched for very thoroughly, shoes being so far apart from the owner and being in pristine condition, people being in pristine condition when they're found and just dead for whatever reason, Park Service covering it up, how the Park Service has their own SWAT team, which is interesting. All the stuff that goes on, and just the amount of like travel, like traveling those 12 miles, like 2 hours later, you're 12 miles up a mountain. Like, there's a lot going on there, but I just can't attribute that to something that seems to be so stupid and degenerate. It just doesn't seem... I don't know. I think missing 411 is extremely interesting. I don't think David Paulides would ever come out and say anything like that either. He seems to be very professional, and he doesn't seem like he would ever make that association. He doesn't seem like he wants to make any association with that.
Right.
Because I think he feels that it's not his place. And
yeah.
He would be right. He's an investigator. He's just following up on the story. His theories about what it may be based on, speculation, they have no place there.
Yeah. And, what was it? When he was pressed on what he thinks it is, he said he doesn't have an answer. He only said whatever it is, it has a 100% success rate. It never fails.
Yeah. Which, and we got to remember that was he a detective or just an officer previously? I think he was a detective.
Yeah, he was a police detective.
Yeah, so he's a detective. So he knows where his limitations are and what he can state, because he knows that if he states something that's ridiculous, later on it could come back and bite him in the ass or kill his credibility. I have an actually incredible amount. And by the way, I think you just lost a son.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, so my sympathy goes out to David. That just sucks. Yeah, he just lost his son. I think his son had depression for quite some time or something of the sort. I didn't get into it, but he had a video on his main YouTube channel where he was, he looks like he's barely holding it together, but at the same time, like, his work is the only thing. He's a good kind of guy. Actually, anybody should go check out his stuff because he doesn't waste his time with the hot chaff that we're doing, like a Bigfoot, banging marijuana growers. He goes purely on facts.
Yeah.
All of his really data is collected. Yeah. Research, police reports, testimonials. He doesn't mess around. I wish that I was as good at finding things out as he is.
Yeah, he has the 2 missing 411 movies on. I think both of them are available on YouTube Movies, and I think the other 2 are on Amazon as well.
What's he got? The Pan Am Missing Project or something?
Can-Am? Canada, America, Can-Am.
That's a Pan. I'm saying Pan Am. But there's a lot of good videos up there. There's a lot of good cases he talks about. But yeah, I have trouble attributing any of that kind of stuff to Bigfoot, because Bigfoot's a big stupid moron who can only think about his raging erection and
his glorious body, his muscles in the sun, right?
Yeah, exactly. His glorious body with his muscles in the sun, and his sweet talking middle-aged marijuana growing women while they stargaze. Nancy.
So do you think it's true? You think she's actually with Bigfoot? Yes or no? Right now? Oh, no?
Of course not. Look, I'm going to say this. I'm going to say with 99.9999999% certainty, no. But,
okay.
But
It's not
that I believe any particular aspect of it. It's that, dude, this world is and it's always been nuts.
The demon haunted world, I call it.
Yeah, it kind of seems that way, doesn't it?
That's just the end of the story. Bigfoot's a moron. He's with Nancy now.
Yeah, don't even think about making a play for her, man. It's not going to happen.
Yeah,
She's keeping him locked up so you can't see him.
Yeah, keeping him locked up, all right, in her head.
Fanfiction.net. That's where Nancy keeps her Bigfoot locked.
If you want to learn more about Nancy's relationship, just go to Amazon. Amazon books, type in Bigfoot. I guess that's it for this episode of The Bell Midnight. Come back next week. We're going to talk about the 10 Commandments of the Antichrist. Until then.
Bigfoot. I hate him.